Hello, people. How's it going? Well, the American Civil War is my second favorite period of study in history. The First World War, Second World War, sorry. Second World War is my first. And my third one is everything else. This is, I think, one of the best histories of the entire war. I read this a long time ago when I first started out reading about the American Civil War. The first book I ever read on the American Civil War is The Landscape Turned Red, about the Battle of Antietam by Stephen W. Sears, which is a very good book. He's a very good writer. Very good writer. But anyway, this book is very good. It's very good. It's thick, but it also does a very good job of basically giving you an idea of why the war started, like the people behind the war. It does a good job of condensing a lot of information, a lot of history, in the years leading up to the war, 2 years after the war. Let's see, content, historical background on the issues, and secession, slavery, the political crisis, from the Dred Scott decision to secession, the fall of Fort Sumter, April 14th, 1861, the issues in Washington, Richmond in 1861, Robert E. Lee and the offer of the United States command, which was offered, First Battle of Bull Run, or Manassas, or as the Union doesn't like to call it, the Great Skedaddle. Mason and Siddell, to better see diplomacy abroad, DuPont's squadron at Port Royal, the Battle for Missouri, the capture of Fort Henry and Fort Donelson by Mr. from General Grant. Well, he wasn't a general at the time, but you get the idea. The Battle of Shiloh, the Monitor from the Merrimack, capture of the Mississippi River forts in New Orleans, George McClellan and the Army of the Potomac. McClellan was a waste of time. McClellan really, he was the worst guy to ever run the army. He was a great organizer. The army he created won the war. He really did. He just didn't want to use it. And he didn't know how to use it. And he didn't want to use it. Did I mention he didn't want to use it? General Pope in the Second Bull Run. Pope, unfortunately, was not a people person. And should not have been put in charge. He eventually came up here in Minnesota by the Dakota Uprising, which he really didn't fight it. He was more like a supply guy. He really didn't do a whole lot, but he was here. McClellan, hopefully, in Antietam. Well, Antietam is considered more of a draw than an actual win for either side because they bludgeoned each other practically to death. Neither army could have fought beyond that. It is the bloodiest single-day battle in American history. I mean, it was a bloody affair. Landscape Turned Red by Stephen W. Sears is an excellent book on the subject. And must read. Very first book I ever read on the subject. Jeb Stuart, Chambersburg Raid, The Road to Emancipation, Burnside, the Battle of Fredericksburg. Burnside knew full well that he should not have been put in charge of the Army of the Potomac. He even told them, Lee and Philly, Mr. Lincoln, Mr. President, don't put me in charge. And they said, too bad, you're in charge. Yeah. He knew he should have been in charge. He knew his limitations. He still tried to win. His plan would have worked if certain things had gone right. They didn't go right. And there's Chance Lawsville. Hooker was a good general. The problem is he had a loud explosion that happened next to him, which probably a lot of people think gave him a concussion. And he was rattled. He just was not Hooker at that moment. He might have won if Hooker had not suffered, probably was a concussion. The Vicksburg campaign, which is Grant and Sherman, up against Johnston and Pleasant. But anyway, the Vicksburg campaign, which it's the fall of Vicksburg and Mullins and the River campaign and the Admirals Porter and Farragut, and that campaign probably was bigger than the one that I'm about to mention, which is Gettysburg. I mean, both those battles really did signal that the war cannot be won by But the Vicksburg campaign probably really did seal the deal because they split the Confederacy in half. The Anaconda Plan, which was, by the way, General Winfield Scott's plan, he was the Secretary of War. I'm probably wrong on that, but he was in charge in the military. He was the Secretary of War. It was called the Secretary of War back then. But his plan was literally the Anaconda just going to squeeze the Confederacy, which is what Grant was trying to do. Sherman was trying to do. 2 minutes of mortality, which is the Gettysburg Address. National elections in 1864, where George B. McClellan tried to run for president and lost. General Sherman's campaign in Georgia. The battles of the West, Chickamauga and Missionary Ridge. By the way, they did the Great Locomotive Race case. Race of Morgan, Dahlgren, and Montreal. Farragut is unleashed to the rigging of Mobile May. This is damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. And they weren't torpedoes as you're thinking in a modern sense. These literally would have been landmines. These literally would have been. You ever seen the mines in the water where there are just giant balls of spikes sticking out of them? That's what he meant. They called those torpedoes. They're not thinking about the things that submarines shoot out. Let's see. Battle of the Kearsarge in Alabama. The Wilderness of Spotsylvania, which is a bloodbath. The Spotsylvania, the Cold Harbor. More of a bloodbath. Fighting in the Shenandoah. Thomas versus Hood, Tennessee. Cushing destroys Albany. Negro troops in the Union Army. This would be, Willie Glory does a very good job. That's a very, very, very good movie. Sherman's March to the Sea. Beauregard and Butler and Drury's. Grant moves south of the James. The Red River Expedition of Banks and Porter. The Bombard capture of Fort Fisher. The Long Route Appomattox. Johnson surrenders Sherman. The Last Days of Lincoln. This is a very good book. It reads historical backgrounds. It literally does give why the issue started. It details all the political nonsense that the United States government was trying to avoid solving this issue while coming with one compromise after another, which was only pushing it farther and farther down the road till finally Fort Sumter. It was going to happen. I mean, the Civil War was going to happen. The Civil War was about slavery. And the bottom line issue of the American Civil War was American slavery. You can't get around it. I mean, this book does a very good job of the different generals, the foot soldiers, the politics, the foreign relations of people of other countries, either getting involved or not getting involved, the battles. It talks about the personalities of the battles, the generals. As I said, this is a very good condensed history of the American Civil War. And it really is. I mean, I do like this book. Doesn't have a bibliography back here, which is unfortunate. I do like bibliographies. Okay. The author, Harry Hampton, was born in Davenport, Iowa, and received a Bachelor of Philosophy degree from the University of Chicago. He served as a war correspondent for the Chicago Daily News during World War I. He was a correspondent in the Paris Peace Conference in 1919. Mr. Hampton serves as a literary editor of the Chicago Daily News, the New York World, and the New York Telegraph. He wrote 11 books as well as numerous articles, essays, lectured at Columbia University, the University of Chicago, member of the Society of American Historians. He was the editor of the World Almanac. It is a good book. Fun-packed review of the battles and leaders of the 1860s, the political and historical background, makes the military action meaningful. From the firing of Fort Sumter to the shooting of Abraham Lincoln, this fascinating construction of the Civil War conveys the sights, sounds, and emotions of a conflict that shaped our history and our national consciousness. Here is the vivid and compelling commentary of generals, common soldiers, politicians, ordinary citizens from both sides of the conflict. This fascinating work explores the long social issues that plunged the nation into war, providing an in-depth analysis of the politics of the war years of the colorful personalities of federal and Confederate leaders. Here is one comprehensive, utterly engrossing volume. It's very good. It's the Civil War as it really was. The forces and events that caused it, and the soldiers and civilians who fought it. Ideas and values that are largely a legacy of today. It is very good. By the way, there is a version. A little more easier to read. You do this with your Idiot's Guide. I do like these Idiot Guides. These Idiot Guides are cool. They really are helpful, and I do like them. But if you don't want to read the other book and you want to just read this one on the American Civil War and not be, too bogged down with details and this, that, and the other, I would read this. I do like the Idiot Guides. The Idiot Guides have a lot of interesting subjects. That would be Sherman down there on the bottom. If you know anything about the Idiot Guides, they are quite well written. They are quite well written. No, I'm not going to read all the chapters. Minneapolis, the beginning, Liberty and Union, now and forever, Defense of the War, Bleak inaugural, what will manage to keep house, the Anaconda and the picnic party. They probably are referring to Bull Run because people literally thought one battle was all it was going to take, and literally people came all over the place to have a picnic and watch the battle between two inexperienced armies, which really turned into, as it's called, the Great Skedaddle, which is the Union boys ran away, but the Union boys were not ready to fight a war. The young Napoleon man who fights, that was McClellan. McClellan really did have a very big ego, really did think he was saving the Union by doing as little as possible, and he was doing as little as possible. Ocean Valley River is probably the naval battles of the war. Blue, Gray, and Red is probably 7 days, another Bull Run. 7 days is where Lee takes over, by the way. Once Johnson is wounded, I believe he's wounded, or I know he gets ill. I think he's wounded. Before the 7 days battle in 1862. So Lee takes over, and all of a sudden Lee becomes the hero, the legend, the overrated general that he was. Sorry, but he was. Lee was not a. Lee knew how to use. He knew. How do I put this without sounding terrible? Lee at the time had an army that actually knew what it was fighting for. Knew it had everything required to win. Except for one little detail, they couldn't replenish the men they were losing. The Union could. The Union could replenish men, materials. The Union was never going to lose this war. There were just too many of them. I mean, Lee's attempt to invade Maryland and Pennsylvania was to try to, one, try to sue for peace somehow by threatening Washington. Somehow. His plan didn't make any sense. It didn't make any sense to Longstreet either. But he was trying to draw them away from Richmond, which they weren't really after. They were after the army. They wanted to defeat the Confederacy. Grant knew this. Grant understood that, look, Richmond is not the problem. Lee has an army. That's the problem. Unfortunately, McClellan, I forgot Meade. General Meade, once Meade was put in charge a couple days before the Battle of Gettysburg, he did a very good job. Meade was never fired. General Meade was still in command of the Army of the Potomac. Grant was just put in charge of the entire, both sides, the Western Theater and the Eastern Theater. And this book is fascinating. This book is very good. It explains all this stuff far more better than I could. It really does. But anyway. But, the Confederacy had generals in the beginning when the Confederacy wasn't choosing their own generals. And Stonewall Jackson, if he hadn't been where he was, would not have been shot by his own men. And Longstreet, by the way, was going to be shot a year later during, I Well, it was during the Wilderness Campaign, so it was one of those battles. He wasn't killed, but like Stonewall. But it was interesting. I mean, the Confederacy had no chance to win those. They were never going to win, and they were never going to get recognized by the other countries because the other countries were not going to accept a country involved in slavery. By that point, the British government was no longer tolerating slavery, and neither was France, particularly the English. By the way, that Englishman in the movie Gettysburg, I do have his book. I should probably bear this right there. I do have Fremantle's book. He did write one, and I do have it. Maybe I'll do it. Maybe I'll do a review of it later some other time. This book, I keep showing you. I just think it's funny the complete idiot's guide to the Civil War and just how well these books are written and just how informative they are. Anyway, as I said, this book is very good. Worth reading, worth writing. American Civil War is interesting. I mean, in a lot of ways, really more the United States of America to active war. You have to remember that most of the people were fighting for their state, not a confederacy per se. They were fighting for their state. Once the war pretty much demonstrated we either become the United States of America or we just split it off again. It's an interesting subject. The American Civil War is a very interesting subject. Lots of interesting people. And yes, it's all about slavery. That's a different videos not long enough. Anyway, like, share, comment, subscribe. Thank you for watching. Behave yourselves, people. You know I'm not going to. See you later. See you later.